Hey guys, what is up? It is Serio10 here today, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. Back in January, I got my hands on Million Live, the big Idol set for Idol Master. It's a standalone set. You can also mix it with the original if it's the original girls. And I know this video is coming out really late, but the set was huge. You know, we've been going to a lot of tournaments. So I haven't had the time to properly sit down and test. And initially, my testing... the set seems good. Like, you're sitting there looking at the tools it has, right? But then you actually start playing it and you start realizing this set kind of is missing some, like, key things. And I didn't want to, like, immediately bash on the set without really trying out a lot of different things. Because I saw I was, like, winning some Japanese shop challenges, so I was trying those decks out. I was taking the decks that other people were playing. And then, of course, I was trying my own list. And I'm going to go over that in the video. But this is going to be kind of like a overview of the cards, how I think they rate independently, and then I'm also going to mention synergies that they have with other cards. But yeah, let's get right into it because this is gonna be my first time doing something like this. So at level 0, this set has so much utility. This is the biggest section, is because at level 0 you have more utility than any set I've ever seen. So things that I think, cards that I think are good. I think I didn't really sort them too much, right? Especially in this picture. But these are all the utility cards. I think these are the good ones. These are the cards that if you have in your deck, I'm not gonna question what you're doing. The first one is the Azusa. When she gets reversed, she goes to memory if you have 2 or less cards in memory, and then when she gets damage dealt by her is canceled, she goes to stock. All in all, a really good card, especially for old Idol Master, where, stock is, a thing you don't really have too much of. You've got the blind stock sold, but Haruka costs stock, and then you've got, these early plays that cost stock. And then the Haruka top end is, pretty expensive. It's, pay 4, ditch 1. So, that card is, super solid, pretty much all stages of the game, and then it just removes itself, so you're always getting, free compression off of playing it. Despite that, I never put it in my list, right? So I think that really says a lot about how good the utility is at of the other cards in this set. Then the second one is I think this is build specific, but I find this card absolutely absurd. It's the mill 2 when it gets reversed. If you hit a level 2 or higher, it goes to stock. But then it also has if you have 1 or less other characters, when you attack, you mill top. If it's level 0, the level 0 plus goes to back row. So it's a free plus. But then it also removes itself. It's mill. I just found that a super solid card. We got an on death Ricky, top check, add to hand if it's a character or event, and then on attack give a card power times soul. That's pretty solid, especially when you see how garbage your level 1s are. That extra 2k power is pretty nice, and it's got hand filter. 3/5 on the turn it's played and has discard bond to flowers, which is a super good event. Is the next card. And then this one is the on attack, I believe, you mill top 2 if you hit a climax, it gains 2 soul. And then it also has come into play, stock a card from hand. This card is just super good utility for old Dodai. In the modern set, it's a pretty funny mill option. Because sometimes it just gets you a lot of damage. And it's nice mill. And then finally, the blue card on the bottom is tap self. Basically get to draw a card every turn. You get to add event or character. So that's pretty nice. I think this card is the weakest one because you don't really need those pluses. Just because this set is kind of ridiculous with how good its level 0 game is and how many pluses you get just naturally. Yeah, I do think the MVP here is definitely this this blue card, the second card here. Just because if you're playing the right build, I think this thing has a 50+% chance to go to stock every time. So that's pretty nice. You just get a ton of stock for free super early. And then when you hit your second deck, which this does accelerate, you're just staring at your opponent when you have 9 stock going into second deck, and they're just I don't know what's going on anymore. And then here's your okay cards. It's these are cards you expect to see in list, but in reality they kind of don't do they're not oh no, I need a ton of these, right? I'm gonna just assume that people have played the set by now, but I think the key cards denote of why they're so low. This Ricky kind of has like the worst selection ever. I think it's really nice that it gives you information, just because like information is power. Like let's say you have like 2 climaxes left in like a 10 card deck, and you play down this Ricky. While you're surrendering the lane for that information, you do get to see like, oh, okay, there's no climax in the next 2. So at worst, I'm triggering 1 and able to pay it out super easy. Or if you do see 1, you're like, well, I guess I can brainstorm and then we can go from there, right? Because so I like the top check effect on this more than the clock self. Well, the clock self is nice because it does like level you up. Then we have the On Death Rize over here in yellow. I think this card is trash. The more I play it, it's like the timing is super bad because you can't just like play over with your own card. So if your opponent side attacks it, like yeah, you're plussing, but like all your other level zeros +2 in this set. Like it's actually just ridiculous, like how much like utility and like plussing you have at 0 and 1. But then you've just like, even when you do need to use it, it's like the timing is kind of garbage because you don't get to see all of your attacks first, so you don't even know if you need to mill. And then like sometimes your opponent will just like crash into it, or they'll like dance around it. And then like 3 is just like it's not a good enough payoff for like the timing on that, right? So I just think that card's not super good. Anything else in here that's just like might be controversial? I don't think so. I don't think like any of these other cards like anyone would like really say is like, oh man, you need like 4 of this or like a lot of this in your deck. I definitely think the Drop Searcher and the Drop Climax Salvage are like kind of mandatory one-ofs in the set, just because like those are just good profiles. But because your selectivity for level 1, if you're playing a level 1 combo, you might want to play more Drop Searchers. And then yeah, these are just like the bad cards. If you thought about putting these in your deck, just don't. Pretty basic. Then we've got like field-based pluses. So these are like your oversizes, your runners, your clean cuts. I took the time to sort these by like how useful I think these are, because I don't think any field-based plus is bad. And one of these is actually like a utility card, but a couple of these are actually just utility cards. But like I think that they do help you plus the field eventually. The clean cut I think is super solid, being a 3K. It might be able to live on its own just because it's like bigger than most cards. But at the same time, I think in this set, it's really weird because you have like the next card, which is the Yukihyo that runs at the back row, and you're probably saving that to pump your level 1 combo. So then like you're like moving that up, and you probably have a Brainstorm out already, and then you're like fielding your level 1 combo. So like Clean Cut is like super good, especially if you don't run standby, like right. But if you run standby, I feel like your board gets like so clogged naturally that it kind of makes like standby worse, right? Because like you're gonna have like one lane that's good, it's like a level 1 combo. You're gonna have like one lane that's utility card that's garbage, or like something that you like want to save with the clean cut. And then you have like the clean cut itself, right? And regardless of how you set up your attacks, I always feel like when I'm playing standby, like I never want to trigger standby on the first attack or the second attack. Because like normally, like right, if you don't play a clean cut, you can just like leave your back row open in case you like trigger a standby on first attack. Because you have the clean cut, you're automatically saying, well, this back row, I probably want to clean cut a card back here, right? And like you commit the clean cut to the board, and then if you trigger a standby on the first attack, it feels really bad because you either have to deny yourself the clean cut and just crash like 2 lanes, or like crash that lane and then like fielded a pretty subpar card outside of that, or like you might have like accidentally put a utility card up that you didn't want to lose. Or then, if you triggered on the second attack, it's like the same conundrum, right? Because if it wasn't okay to stand by one of those slots on the first attack, then on the second attack, it's still not okay. It feels like you only get to trigger like on one attack a standby to make it feel good with the clean cut when you're committing at like later levels. And you do commit this at later levels because you do have the cards that pump at 2K. You do have like the 1K to middle on the Brainstorm. Like this clean cut could be like 7K, 6 to 7K, which is pretty insane. So yeah, I don't like this with the standby. The Yu-Gi-Oh is super good. Pumps your garbage cards. This blue card is super solid in the like blue field-based deck. It's probably the only deck where you can actually like contest boards super like well. In Million Life is like the blue deck. I haven't played with it too much. I just think that it's like a super neat, super good card. The other ones are like experience, tap, give power. I just felt like it wasn't like flexible enough with its power, right? Compared to like the blue card where like you get like to give 1K to 2 different slots. The coin flip card's super cool. I just feel like there are better things to be using your slots on. But like if you're using the coin flip card, I don't think it's bad. Runners still good. They deny your opponent's clean cuts. But at the same time, though, people are like more and more aggressive all the time because like their level 0 lineups are getting better. They have the coin flips back to hand. They have things like the Yu-Gi-Oh that run to back row. They have ways to try field and not get severely punished for it. So I just feel like a vanilla runner is kind of mediocre. 4Ks, I just feel like they don't do enough the later the game goes on. The Ori is trash. Like everything past that, like I just don't think you should really be playing in a deck. I think it's just like all the other cards past the Makoto are just not very good. And then at level 0, we only have 3 different Brainstorms: tap self salvage, tap self search, and like I think it's like tap 2, but it's like legacy support, right? The red one, the salvage one, is I always feel the best because I know what's in my grave. And my grave's not going to change after the brainstorm. Because, like, every time you're brainstorming for, like, a one-of with a search brainstorm, like, because sometimes you brainstorm because you want, like, this random one-of you play, right? And then you mill it. I know it's, like, statistics, and, like, I probably shouldn't be that caught up. But then it's also kind of nice that I can just memorize what's in my stock, pay it out, smash the salvage brainstorm, get what I need. But then it's also got the most relevant secondary effect, which is 1,000 to middle level zeros. This works well in a lot of decks, and it works well with the clean cut. Of course, that's something your opponent can play around. Oh boy. So now that we've gone over the level 0s a little bit, let's get into the level 1s. So I think I've sorted the Climax combos by how viable I think they are. Like in pretty much like any meta. This is going off the assumption most people in Japanese kind of just like their decks naturally let you get reverses unless it's like a standby deck. And I think if you know this set, you know that these cards are super weak for no reason. Like I have no idea why all these cards are so weak. The blue card is got some like super axe synergy, get big stuff going on. Like it can't be bombed, and it's supposed to be like some cool thing, but then it's like only a 5/5 after you use an act, and then you slam a book and it's a 6/5. So if your opponent's like playing anything even remotely, like they're playing like Goblin Slayer, they don't even have to use the backup. They just like sit there and like you have to crash into them. Like you have to tie them. It's like with like the Loli. Sorry, I don't know names. It's like the gate combo. I think the gate combo is really good for the utility it gives. Events are getting spookier and spookier. Being able to remove those from your opponent is always a good thing. The blue one, the reason it's so high, I don't think that like 6/5 Shimakaze is like super good. It's just that Climax goes with the level 2. So like you're playing by playing that, you're automatically having a Climax combo at level 1 and level 2, which I think is like a really nice thing. And then like you get like a bunch of axe synergies, so you can play that blue card in the back row. You've got a cool backup at level 1 as well that bonds to itself. So like you can like back up, this thing becomes a 6/5 from the backup, and then you get to give 1,000 power somewhere else. So you can like you can just like start throwing power around. I actually don't agree with where I put the Maguro. I think that the TD Maguro is like even worse than that because you can't reliably tri-field it. But then it's also like the best card that your opponent can't deny. And then it's like only a 6K, right? So it's like I would rather be guaranteeing like a cool card or like possibly denying my opponent like advantage later by getting rid of events with the 1-0 than I would playing the TD card. Union Union's probably pretty good. It's just like I never know what I'm supposed to be doing with Union. Especially like if it gets denied the reverse, like that super feels bad, right? I mean it's the same with all the other combos. The Hibiki, I feel like its selectivity is garbage. Like if you don't mill a higher level card, half of the time you're getting like level zeros off of this thing. The mill is not super good, and then it not being on a 1K1, it being on a stock soul is like you're already like almost surrendering board to like half of the decks, right? Like there's a lot of combos that are just sitting out there at 6K. Like there's the Bunny Unions. Look, Million Life itself's Bunny Union is a 5/5 uncommon. Like there's just too many cards that just wall out 5K, right? Like it's like you're playing against like a TD and they throw it on a vanilla and you can't do anything. You can't do anything with the Sabiki combo. It is nice that it mills, and it is nice that it's almost selective until you mill like 2 level zeros and like you're not even able to like set up your hand for what you need. I just felt like this combo was trash. The 2-soul combo, I feel like... Okay, so I was like looking at the numbers, and I could be wrong on this. I think the top check is cool. I think the fact it gains soul is cool. But like, if you gain 1 soul, if you put yourself to 4 soul with this thing, I think you're like less likely to stick damage actually. Like you're actually going to stick less damage than slamming like a 1K1. Because they're more likely to like cancel 2 of them. Like I might have put the numbers in the calculator wrong, but like it was like a 10% increase, I think, or something like that. That your opponent's going to cancel 2 of your attacks instead of just eating 2. So I feel like you stick less damage. It's selective. It's funny. I just don't think like if you're trying to win a tournament, like you don't play the 2-soul. And the rest of these cards are hot garbage. I don't have to talk about them. Now level 0 though, just like level 1, has a ton of utility. Even though the combos aren't very good, you still have like good utility cards. The Maya, I think that's what it is, from Kantai, is the first card when you use an axe stock charge. And it's a vanilla power. So it's like literally as big as your Climax combos. It's actually bigger than your Climax combos. It goes in the blue deck to go with the axe energy. So when you back up, you can power pump it. I think that this card is a fine bridge at level 1. Like, I don't even think you have to play all of these level 1 combos. I think you can ignore all of them because your level 2 combos in this set are so good. Or like there is a level 2 combo that is so good that you can just ignore all of these. But if you're playing the blue card, the like blind stock, I think that's like just like a super solid like bridge at level 1. Because like there used to be like, you know, just like on reverse blind stock or on reverse stock charge as like combos, and I think that's like what this is. It just facilitates you into your game plan of like getting super compressed. Because I always feel like when I play Million Live, it's like my game plan is kind of like Milky Holmes or like not quite the same as Milky Holmes, but like it's like one of the stock charge decks, right? That's how I feel Million Life plays. You got a Shimakai, it just kind of helps you kill stuff because like your combos are only 6K, like, or 6/5 at the biggest if you're playing the Union. The next card is if you have 2 flowers in memory, you can give it's like 500 to front, but it's also 500 global. I think this card is super solid because it goes in the wall decks. It goes in. It just like kind of helps your 1-0 combo. Flowers is a really good card in the set, by the way. It's a salvage event. Top check. If it's level 0, the level 0 goes to stock, and then the event goes to memory. And if you have one of them in memory, this card gains the 500 front. So I think you play that card just because the flowers is just too. It's just too good. It's like a 1-0 salvage event that like compresses you, which is nice because I think that the game plan of Million Life again is like getting super compressed. Um, this is like the next card is a Brainstorm. I think it's like 500 to front, and then it's a draw 2 ditch one. It helps you get events, which when we get to the events, you can see that this deck can be very event focused. It also doubles as a ditch out, which is kind of relevant. I don't like saying that you have to hit a Brainstorm to discard cards though. And then the next card is one that a lot of people really love. It's like you have to, your opponent calls 0 or 1, you mill the top card. If you hit the level that they declared, you draw that +1 cards. As you can see, it's 2k power. It surrenders board immediately. Like, you play this down, if they call 0, you'd get a draw. But you flushed your opponent by playing this down, right? So, like, unless they call a 1 and give you 2 cards, like, you don't even plus off of this card because you plus your opponent. And I know I've been told that's not, like, the right way to think about this game, but it really is. Because then, like, you're crashing this, or you're dealing less soul damage. And when you crash this, like, you take more damage because you decided that, like, this really gimmicky card was the best way for you to keep hand instead of just, like, playing, like, a better deck. And then the rest of the cards, I don't think are, like, super good. Because, like, the one, like, when something dies, you can put in stock. I don't think there's, like, a deck in Million Live that, like, will really use enough stock that it's worth playing that card. And then everything else is just, like, kind of mediocre. Yeah, we got some beaters and backups. And I kind of, like, put them in order. Like, the top row is, like, stuff if you play. I'm probably not going to, like, think too much of it. The bottom row is, like, if I see this in your deck, it's probably a pretty bad deck. The only thing to note, I think, is the 1/1 blue card, I think, is absolutely insane. If you use a backup, especially with, like, the blue deck and as, like, field focused as it is, the fact that you can just be like, oh, I use a backup and this thing's 8/5, and then, like, use another backup, because you can actually use, like, 4 backups a turn with this deck, because your backup bonds to itself, which is pretty cool. It's like a ditch. It's a 1/0/1k ditch bonds to itself. So, like, your opponent runs into your backup, and then you just, like, discard a card, and you're like, oh, I have my backup back. And I think that's, like, pretty ominous, like, right? Because, like, your opponent has to really respect the fact, especially if you're playing, like, that blue back row at 0, and there's, like, a blue back row at 2 as well that you could play. And then you have, like, all the different effects that activate when you use an act. Like, your opponent really has to respect the combo of, like, if you have that 1/1 and the 1/0. The first card is just, like, your generic Silica 1/1/7/5. The second card is basically the same thing but 6/5, so it's a 1/0. I think a 1/0 is, like, really nice, just having a 1/0/6/5, because I am, like, a huge proponent, like I said, of this set. Just, like, skipping the level 1 combos. I don't think the level 1 combos give you enough outside of the blue one, because you also get a level 2 combo to, like, even warrant playing. Like, I think your level 0s are good enough. You can, like, use your level 0 game through level 1, like, power pumping clean cuts, just, like, kind of trying to, like, you know, maintain hand and sculpt hand during it, and then get to level 2 and then actually, like, implement your game plan and stabilize. So, like, putting 1/0/6/5s in your deck actually isn't that bad in this set. And then, of course, you have, like, a normal 2k counter over there on the side. So, level 2, here are your 2 Climax combos. I think the Makoto is absolutely absurd. For every other copy of itself, it gains 2k in the front row. So, it caps out at 11/5, which is huge. I mean, like, it's as big as most early plays. Like some decks like GGO, their early plays aren't even as big as this. And then it has on reverse with the stock soul. Stock a card from grave, and then search them for a music character. So I think that's absurd, because you get to you surrender level 1 by not playing Climax combos, right? Like, you're playing, like, clean cuts and stock charges when you use an act. And you're doing, like, 3 to 4 damage. So you're not, like, super far behind, right? Like, but you're probably, like, 2 to 3 damage behind at level 2. Just because, like, even though you have like the super aggressive level 0 that, like, can carry you on through level 1. Then you get to level 1 and your opponent slams down a Climax. And then you still have to use your level 0 game. So, like, you're just doing less damage. Like you might get a Soul Trigger or two, but like you're not slamming a Climax at level 1 half of the time with this deck. At least with the deck that the build that I found to like. And then they clear your board because it's like a bunch of garbage. It's like 3Ks and like 500 power cards. And you've gone like 8 stock, 9 stock, and then you just drop down a field of Makotos. 2 to 3, and then you search out an anti-change counter, and like that automatically wins you like 2 lanes. Because like who plays like 2/1s that often? Like, a lot of players just like don't like to value level 2. And then, like, the turn you play this, you rip, like, 3 cards out of your deck, or 6 cards, because you get your triggers as well. And you just get, like, super compressed on that turn, and after that, you just, like, sit on these for the rest of the game. So you don't have to clock draw anymore. And you get, like, the perfect hand setup for level 3. So I think it's, like, a super, super solid combo. And it's on a stock soul, which is nice, because then you could just, like, slam stock souls and get more stock. And it being a 1 soul beater is actually kind of nice because you win board with it, and then it's like swinging into open lanes for 2 to 3. It doesn't feel as bad slamming a Climax. Like if this was a 2 soul beater winning board and like you were slamming Climaxes, it would feel really bad, right? Because 4s are not likely to stick even on like well, unless your opponent's like super uncompressed, right? But 3s and 2s, those are pretty good numbers. And the second one is just man, see, I don't like the second one. I think it's good because it goes in the blue deck and it's Climax combos with another card. But like I've hit like a Climax and a level 0 off of it a couple times. Unlike the Makoto, you don't have to field multiples of it though. It's like as long as you have a board, when you use an act, you gain 2k, so you go up to 9/5. So it has like a lower ceiling than Makoto, but like with all the axe synergies in the blue set, it's like super nice. And then, oh god, it just removes like 3 cards at the top of your deck when you kill something, right? It's like blind stock, top check 2, adding to level 1 or higher to hand. So like it doesn't sculpt your hand as well. It does get you cards, but like you can't guarantee like you can't guarantee like the anti-change counter play, right? Not without running multiple 3 anti-change counters. So I think the blue card's good, but thankfully you have the level 1 if you play that card. So it kind of bounces out. But the Makoto, absurd combo. However, you know, like maybe you're not playing those. Maybe you're playing like a standby deck or just, you know, basic other stuff. The 2/2 is your standard standby target. It's like a 10/5 with hand encore. Not really much to talk about there. What is this other card? I think it's got like an experience requirement to be a 10k, and then it has it has some other effect. I actually haven't played with that 2/1. Because like usually if you're playing cards at level 2, you're either playing the Climax combo or you're playing that 2/2. I don't think any of the other cards really do that much. Of course you have like the anti-change counter. You have like 3/5 backups or like 4k backups depending on like what's going on. One requires flowers to be in memory. It's the blue one, I believe. The yellow counter, it's not the anti-change counter, it's pretty funny because it gives like it has like the alarm from Afterglow, I think. It's like 2,000 power and a soul to a character if it's on top of your clock. And then the rest of the cards are just like, you know, kind of bulk filler commons, uncommons. Basically only the 2/2 and the anti-change counters I think are worth playing. But like a 3/5 or a 4k counter is like, I always feel like 4k is overkill, right? Like if an anti-change counter doesn't get you there at like 2/5, I mean, I guess it's like your opponent might not expect the 4k counter, right? But a lot of decks that need reverses are over here playing like cards that tell you can't use backups or reverses in a lane, including this set. So yeah, just stick with the anti-change counter and the 2/2, I think. Everything else you can just kind of ignore. Utilities and supports. I think the first 2 are absurd. The third one is okay. And the fourth one just was kind of garbage in my testing. And the bottom card is absolute garbage. Alpaca is like the strongest card I've ever experienced in this game. If you stand by it out at 1 and like you get an extra turn at 1, like you just get so much compression. It's also super nice in the blue deck because it's a tap act, so then you can like pump stuff 1,000, get all your power pumps on your cards. But then this like alpaca also has a brainstorm effect, which is like it's like pay one, ditch two. And this is spammable because you don't have to tap. You get to tap to stock charge, but then you have like a spammable brainstorm. And for every music character you hit, you get to summon a card to board. That brainstorm is garbage. You don't actually play it. But like the alpaca effect is super good. It comes out early. Even if it doesn't come out early, if you're playing like Makoto walls, just like getting one of this in the back row, because you do spend forever past level 2. You just sit there tapping every turn, getting super compressed. Like I said, I think that's like what the deck does. I think this deck is extremely weak to stock swap as well. The next card is the Yori. It's nice because it's got the Climax change text, and it gives 2k to level 3s in front, so it helps with your on reverse combos at level 3, which, just like your level 1 is like mostly on reverse combos or like underwhelming things, well, your level 3 is going to be the same. It's pretty cool. Except for like one card. This 2-1 is super cool because I didn't even know this thing existed. Like, I didn't actually get the opportunity to play with this card. But if you use an act, it gives something 2500 power. So it makes your like 2-1s way more formidable. You can just like randomly make one of them huge unless your opponent can answer like 2 lanes. Like you can easily just like save both of them if you have 2 of them out. And then it also has pay 2 on play free fresh. I think it's pretty good because, like I said, this set, I usually get between like 13 and like 15 stock in a game with this set. So like 3 stock for a free fresh, not too bad. It's like a heal one, right? It's like a very expensive heal one. Or it can just like fix your deck in a bad situation. Because I also feel like this deck doesn't have a lot of mill. Like at least the builds that I play, I feel like if my deck gets in a super bad position, I can't really do much. Yeah, their card's not very good. So then we got early play killers. This set has a lot of early play killers. I think 2 of them, or 3 of them, like, you shouldn't feel too bad about. The first one, I think, is the best one. It allows you to play way more flexible Climax spreads. Just because it has, like, a pay 2 search a Climax on play. And then it's also just a reverser. So it's pretty funny to note that if you pay 2 to get the Climax for Makoto, like if your hand is like 3 Makotos, this thing, if you use all 6 stock, you actually get 7 back after the Climax. If you get like a triple Makoto turn off, and then you probably win board. So that's like pretty cool that it actually bounces out in your favor. Because you get like such a ridiculous amount of stock at level 3, you don't mind the pay 3 to like choose what top end you want to play. Because the deck I like plays 2 different top ends. Yeah, not really much else to say. The other one's just like, it's just really fat, right? It's a 2/1 9k. When it fights a level 3, it goes up to 13k, and it's like becomes a 2 soul. Against a lot of like early play decks like that are around now, like GGO and like there's not really a lot of decks that like early play, right? I mean, or like they play like pretty garbage early plays. You don't see like Yo being protected as much anymore because like Sunshine's not really super relevant, or so there's not like a lot of like spooky stuff. Like you might not even have to worry about Henology in a lot of cases. So you can just like throw this thing out and kill like some garbage card they have, and then this card could plus you just because it's 9k. It's pretty big. It does become a level 0 on stage, but a lot of people don't even play bombs, so this card's like unanswerable outside of like 2/1s or like, you know, like another early play. A bottom decker, it's just like bottom deckers are nice if you know that like your meta is gonna have like a lot of garbage that's like super spooky, and they're actually gonna be protecting it. The other 2/1's only like 1,000 power bigger than the yellow card, but then it loses board. So yeah, I think that I think that if you're gonna play like one of the first 3 bombs, and then you can ignore the other 2. But the other one's like Dodai support, which is pretty cool. Now then, level 3, you have 5 different top ends. 3 of them are on reverse. and then one of them is a meme. So like you have one non on reverse climax combo, I think. First one is the Kodoha. Kodoha is so tiny. And like I just feel like not only is she so tiny that it's hard to get reverses, but then she's also like I always find that it was like difficult to get double Kodoha, right? I mean, it's probably because I'm over here playing Makoto walls. If you like surrender two a little bit more, or like only like wall up in one lane, you could probably get double Kodoha easier. But like it's always like super easy to get reverses, right? But burn one 3 times is pretty good. But it's also like it's good at like sticking precise damage, right? But like if you need to stick like 7 damage, sometimes like it's like I only can get like a single Kodoha reverse, and then because I'm not slamming a 1k one, I would just feel like my damage is lacking, right? Because like I need like a swing for 3 or 4 to stick. I need something big to stick, and then like a bunch of these pings to stick. If you can get double Kodoha off though, I think 7 damage is pretty easy to do. Second one just shuffles garbage back in. It is nice because it does give your opponent, they can't use backups or events in a lane when it comes into play. So it helps set up your Kodohas. Of course, though, you need one of each for each like threatening lane that your opponent has to set up Kodohas. But then its climax combo is pretty legit in itself because a lot of people don't play around it, or they can't play around it, right? They just deck it's in a bad state. They only have like double trigger or triple trigger, and then you can just like super punish them by shuffling a lot of garbage back in and swinging. Super solid card like the first two. The yellow card's like super nice because I guess you can play more aggressively with stock or not play as aggressively for stock. Like if your meta is a bunch of like stock swaps, and you need an explosive top end, this like third card's probably the way to go, just because it's like a free on reverse Musashi burn. I don't think it's good. I need to clarify that. I don't think it's good, but I guess if like, because like if you're playing the Kodoha builds, I always just feel like I'm building like a million stock and I'm just gonna die. I'm just gonna die to like the second somebody shows me a stock swap, I lose the game. But because this yellow top end's like, it's like as big as Kodoha, I believe. But then it's because you don't need the 3 extra stock, and I just feel like you can play a little more loose with your stock and not like have to sit on like so much because it is free. The Chihaya is a garbage meme, and then the other card is like some Exodia board garbage. You get a burn one and like a restand. It's not good. You don't play that last card. I don't even think you play the Chihaya. I think the Chihaya is like some garbage meme as well. Set has 3 early plays. Top check X, a healer, and a burn one. I think the healer is pretty garbage just because it's not very big. Like it's only a 9/5, right? So not only are you like opening yourself to anti-change counters, you're also losing the board against like every relevant level 2. It's not very good. The top check X is nice because it finds you events. It like mills your deck, and it finds you climaxes. I think it's super solid. And the burn one is just solid because it's like a top check. It burns one. Pretty decent cards. And the early play condition for the... I think the blue card is 2 or less climaxes engraved. Or is it just 4 characters? Oh, very professional video. It's 4 characters. It's 4 characters for both of them on the right. So, like, they have, like, super easy ones. And then the yellow card is, like, 2 events in memory. So, like, not only is it, like, surrendering board on the 3/2 yellow card, but then you're also just kind of, like... You're more likely to whiff the early play condition. And the only thing you get is a heal. Yeah, I think the yellow card's not super good. Probably don't put it in too many lists. And then at level 3, you've got a couple tech cards that are super cool. You have a 1500 global. When you trigger a climax, give a soul. It kind of alleviates the issue that I was talking about with Kodoha, where like sometimes you just don't have the soul output you need. Modular soul damage is always nice. Like if you trigger like a Climax, you can just like randomly get a nice side for one in a lane. 1500 global if it's in the front from the TD, and it has like on reverse, pay to ditch one, burn one, and it has hand encore. Super solid card. Very good for a TD card, of course. It's actually just very good in general. It helps secure Kodaha kills because 1500 extra power is kind of relevant. And then the other two is like one's just like an early. I mean, it's not even early play. It's just a healer that like power pumps on attack. It's like a Shimakai plus a healer. But then it goes with like this weird Exodia board that you can do with the really garbage standby, or you can do with this this other 3/2. Or like if you have the blue Brainstorm and this yellow healer on board, you can like swap them for like a ton of stock. It's like 3 stock and like a hand or 2 hand or something like that. When this card attacks in the middle, or does it have to kill anything? No, it doesn't have to kill anything. So just like when it attacks in the middle. I think it's nice because it is Climax combo list. Like, right, you don't have to find a Climax. But I also feel like it's so resource heavy, you'd rather just be playing your events or like other stuff. Like, it's hard to do. That's not actually that hard. You can go into like 0 stock. But then it's like. So the main finisher in this set isn't any of these cards, right? It's not any of this as like the main thing. Like, these are cards that you use after, for the most part, it's like after you play your actual finisher, which is this 3/7 event in the set. So 3/7, and then you need like 4 extra stock to get like out the to get these 2 cards out. I just feel like it's always a lot, and then like anything else you need, and then the hand is also just hard because we'll see when we talk about the 3/7. But it's just like I felt like I needed too many slots for too little payoff that were like better used elsewhere for those like last 2 cards. So I just don't like run the last 2 cards. So these are the events you play in Million Live. I've actually sorted them by how viable I think they are. The first one is the 3/7 event. I think you put 2 to 3 of this in every deck anyway. It's you ditch 3 cards on top of the 7 stock to burn 2 3 times. So before you even enter your attack phase, your opponent has already taken like 4 to 6 damage, and then like it's all about like what finisher is the best from there, or like how best to approach the situation. The stock cost is high, but like I said, you probably hit like 13 stock in this deck if you're playing well or you're having like a normal game. 13 to 14 stock. I mean, you could technically double 3/7 event, but then you don't have a hand. I just think it's like super potent because it does like give you so much more information before you go to finish your turn. And then like it's uninteractable. Like, right, your opponent can't play counters on this. They can't do anything. It's like main phase. And since it's burn 2, Kaban doesn't stop. It's like it's not even a character, so I think like it gets around most anti-burns. Pretty absurd card. The second one is the salvage event. The flowers that I talked about goes to memory. Top check. If it's a level 0, the level 0 goes to stock. It's just super nice because it's half of the. It's usually like a 1/0 salvage, and then it compresses you as well, so that's always nice. The yellow makeup event is just like 4 5 to 2 lanes and give them hexproof. I don't think that's as good as just like denying backups, because like sack counters exist, right? Like backups and events, you'd just rather play around those than just give 2 lanes 4 5. But that's like meta dependent, so I don't want to like push that too much. Also, each event can only be played if you have a character of that color on board. So you have to have yellow on board, which is kind of relevant because the yellow cards aren't the best, right? Like at level 3, you're probably not having yellow on board, right? But you have to have yellow on board to play the event. And that card is almost entirely to set up your Kodaha. Unless you think that the Musashi is worth playing this event for. You got the 3/4, it's an anti-damage, and it's like a 3/5 backup. So you save a lane, you don't take damage. It's kind of nice. Um, it's just underwhelming though because like I don't normally say this, but if I'm paying 4, I would rather just pay the 7 and kill them. Like, right? When I played with the anti-damage, every single time it was in my hand, I just thought, why is this not the 3/7 event? Why do I have to let this guy live? Because I don't have enough damage output. Like, right? Because I just don't have enough to, like, push this guy to death. He's at 2-5, 2-6, or, like, 3-0 or something. And I just don't have enough damage in my hand to, like, push for game. And then I have to use this anti-damage counter to not die. This card that my opponent could play around if they were like being smart, versus the card that will just destroy my opponent every time. Next event, I think these next 2 events are kind of garbage. It's the first one is tap a card, stock charge blind stock 2. Since you have a lot of top checks, you can like kind of confirm it. It's just like, why? Like, you're getting enough stock in this deck anyway. Like, I don't think you need this event to, like, help you. I don't think you need, like, a brick card in your hand when you can just be playing better utility. And then the other one is just a top check 4 counter, but it, like, puts itself at the bottom. I don't know why it puts itself at the bottom. There's no bonders to it. It's just kind of bad, right? So, I don't think you play that at all. Yeah, so that's it for the cards, right? Like I said, I think the only thing that's like super worth mentioning is once again the fact that like if you're playing standby, clean cut becomes less good of a card, and you probably play like coin flippers more. Just because like I think that's like something a lot of people just think they need to have clean cuts in their deck, right? But I actually just feel like that's wrong, because like the clean cuts feed other people's clean cuts, and then also like when you can't use them past level 0, it's like the same thing as playing a 4K, right? It's like an aggressive 4K. If you can't clean cut at later stages of the game, I just feel like it's not as good. Maybe that's like being a little too harsh on the card profile. But, like, I always just find that people field utility at later points in the game. So, like, most clean cuts can get there, especially with all the power pumps in this set. Like, when I'm putting the clean cuts in the deck, I'm thinking, like, at level 1, I might be able to clean cut my Shimakaze. I might be able to clean cut my, like, salvage, on reverse salvage. I might be able to clean cut whatever I'm playing at level 1 that I would like to keep for an extra turn for more utility. But then when I'm over there playing standby and I'm not able to do that, I feel like my level 0 game has become weaker, and like something that it doesn't help me for as long as it should. So I think that's like the only like super like important or like controversial thing that or like different than like what a lot of people say, right? I think that's just like something to really keep in mind. So these are sample decks. This is the deck that I play. I do want to change it up to a second anti-change counter. Swap out the 1 counter for another one. This one, so when we're looking at it, right, I'm playing 3 clean cuts because the clean cut just gives you so much value in this deck. And I'm going to swap the Brainstorms around too. I'm just going to make it 4 of the single Brainstorm. We're playing 4 of the Yukiho Runner because it's good going first or second, because you can power pump a card to kill a utility card or crash with a utility card or to guarantee a clean cut. And then you can run to back row regardless. Like, you can side attack a card and then run to back row. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just, like, super solid, especially for, like, because we don't play a level 1 combo. Clean cut's super solid because it just protects your cards. And then you can, like, power pump with the Yu-Gi-Oh! To use the clean cut at level 1, like I said. The Brainstorm power pumps your clean cuts. So, like, if you open, like, clean cut and the Brainstorm, you can sometimes just, like, field that and your opponent can't answer it. We play a lot of level 2s and up. I mean, we play 1, 2, that's like 4, 8, 10. I think it's like close to 15. Like, it's close to 20, I think. Level 2s and up. So the blue card that like mills to when it gets reversed is just it hits so often, like, right? Like, it's like most of the time, not only does this thing have like a good chance of plussing you a random level 0, it also plusses you a stock. And then it mills 2, so it helps you get to your refresh faster. You got the 1 of drop searcher, you got the 1 of discard a climax salvage. Not much to talk about there. You have, in place of a level 1 combo, you just play the Maya. So you get stock that way. You can just like build like, your opponent usually like a 5/5 is actually usually big enough. Especially like 5/5 and 6K are usually like about the same. As far as like what decks you can get reverses against. So half of the time you just like brainstorm and then you build like 5 stock in that turn. Because you get like 2 reverses on like some garbage combo. And if you can't get reverses with it, it's like, well, I guess you're having a worse game, but like you were probably going to get walled out if you're playing any of the other combos as well. So the matchup would just like feel the same, right? But then you have like a way stronger level 2 game that would bring you back into that game. You have the Makotos that like you just kind of have to like death grip because you don't have a real good way to find them. But then you also have the Climax Searcher at level 2, so you can play the 3/3/2 split. You're not running a ton of climaxes, or you're not running a ton of standbys, so you're not like losing out on soul output there. If like you have to slam a climax at a certain point. And then also like you're not crutching on that because like I think the Kodaha is like the least likely thing to go off, like especially in this deck, right? Because you're playing the Makoto wall, and then your opponent has to be like, I'm gonna kill your Makoto with something that cannot beat like a 13k. I'm gonna kill your 11/5 with something that can't be bigger than 13k. But you know sometimes that does happen. Like sometimes they play like cards that gain power only on their turn. And then you punish them hard with the Kodaha. Or if they don't, you can just like slam down the pants and shuffle a bunch of garbage back in their deck. So I think this is the list. Like this is personally the list that I enjoy the most to play. Like I said, I do think I need a second anti-change counter. I do think I need to swap the Brainstorms. But outside of that, like I find this list super fun to play. And then the only other deck, because like I know there's like the 10 event deck and like a bunch of other stuff. I guess I could link those, if people want. But this was like a one that like topped a Japanese shop. This is kind of close to what I was talking about when I was talking about like a more field based deck. It plays the cards that like when you use Axe, you give power. It's got like 2 backups. It doesn't play the Bonder backup, which I think is the mistake. And then you have like the Climax combo at level 1 and 2. And then you go into the standby at level 3. Yeah, so I think this is like super solid, right? And also, cool thing about the blue combo, at least with the standby, right? I don't agree with the clean cut, by the way, with the 4 standby. But, so the 2/1 combo, because it only gains power when you use an act, you can like just surrender board to like 9Ks and 10Ks, and then like set up the Kodaha reverses that way. Which I know a lot of people would be like, oh well, you know, why wouldn't they just crash something smaller? You know, sometimes people aren't good players. So they'll actually just try to kill your 2/1s, despite the fact you have a really spooky on reverse combo. So I think the fact that you can choose to like let these die easier than you can Makoto is kind of nice. Synergy with the standby. But yeah, that's like really all I have to say about Million Life. I think if you see the 10 event list going around, I think that list is garbage. Your opponent can just get too compressed ignoring what you're doing. They can just like play like a marker based deck and get like a million markers. Or they can just, stop clock drawing at like level 2. Or not even level 2, like turn 2. Just because like the deck doesn't do anything. It's the same thing with the Gahana combo, if you play that at 1/0. Or level 1, sorry. If you play the 1/0 Hibiki combo that mills 2, a lot of the times your opponent can just, while it is like more selective, like a good player is going to recognize that like because your level 1 lineup doesn't go past 5/5, or like 5K that they can just like sit on like a wall and like not care. And then a lot of people aren't playing the Makoto level 2 or like anything else. So they just sit on like a 1-0 the entire game and you can't do anything. Like you can. I mean, you get 3 attackers every turn and like you're like slamming these events and getting stock. But then you're still just as weak to stock swap. You're losing board every turn. You're like completely at the mercy of your cancels. And your opponent just doesn't have to do it. Like your opponent is effectively being allowed to just sit there and like only mill when they need to, heal when they need to, and completely ignore what you're doing. Like they don't have to like hold counters. They don't have to really do anything. I think that deck is just like super bad because of that. I wish I had the list with like on here, but I don't. But yeah, that's like my Million Life set overview. I think I would not take this set to a big tournament because of, like the weaknesses I was talking about. I think this is like a tier 2. It's a very clear tier 2 deck. It's got this crazy explosive top end. It's got a lot of like gimmicks that are powerful. But at the end of the day, they're gimmicks, right? I mean, like the 3/7 event, you have to have like a lot of stock built up for and hand built up for. I don't think it's like hard to get to, because especially like one turn of Makoto like feeds into it. But it's like the fact that you do build that much stock leaves you open to stock swaps. You don't have stock swaps yourself. A lot of builds at level 1 because like all of your combos are on reverse. And they're not even that big, easy to be walled out. Like I just think there's too much random garbage that will just destroy you in the set. Like right, like you can't beat. Like I can't imagine the mirror match, right? Because like neither of you have stock swaps. You're both getting like a million stock. Like one person will wall out the other, and then like I'm not even sure what happens after that because like neither person can kill the other, just because it's like both of you just get like a million stock and then stare at each other because there's no stock swap. And then it doesn't even have like the safety of Kimono Friends with that like strategy, because while it does have like a more explosive top end, it doesn't turn off the burn ones. But it also doesn't have like the same memory compression. I guess it can. It can have the same memory compression almost as Kimono with the 1-0 event. But yeah, I just think this is like a B tier deck. I think you can win like locals and less like serious events. But if you go into a big tournament, you're just not going to be able to consistently have good matchups. Because I think this deck just has like either fine matchups or just awful matchups. Just because of like the nature of like on reverse combos and how they work. Yeah. So, and also like there's like random garbage. Like right, if you're in the mirror match, or so like let's say you're in the mirror match and your opponent decides to play the Marika combo like on reverse salvage and then like banish an event. Like, you could just lose your 3/7 events before the game even begins, which I think is pretty funny. Yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Million Live as set. If you guys played, if you don't, if you guys do have to play against it, hopefully like I've helped a few people out. I think it's kind of late into the life of the set. I think a lot of people have already settled on builds. Like I said, I think this is my favorite. Let me know if you guys like this type of video also. I could be willing to do this with more sets. But like it'd probably be just about as late, because like whenever I get a set, I don't like to just call it garbage on first impression. Right? I like to try things out, get an idea for a little bit of everything before doing something like this. And let me know if this is just too long. Also, if this is too long, then just never do it again. But until next time, this is Serio Tenant signing out.